Welcome back. Today we're going over Game 3 of the Guli versus Sedol Jubango series matchup. And the reason we're going over this game is that there is a really interesting and also complicated co-situation that arises in this game and persists on the board for a very long time. And I think it's worth going over partially because it's so complicated, just to get a better idea of what's happening on the board and how professionals are analyzing the situation. We have kind of a fairly straightforward, mostly peaceful, actually entirely peaceful opening so far. Guli is white. He has a really magnificent sort of whole board style. Sedol is also awesome. His specialty is more in hard fighting, just make things really complicated, read really deeply, and find a way somehow. Sedol's also known for, considering non-intuitive moves. It's like he will actually analyze every single possible move, and he comes up with some really excellent tsujis and creative play of his own. But the two players are very different, which is why this series was very exciting. And on the next move, we kind of get a feeling for Sedol's style here. It's like, okay, the opening's over, we've mapped out our areas, let's start fighting now. And this is going to progress. This is kind of a neat driving to Tsuji. I'm not sure if this is the right place to employ it in the whole board situation, but if you're in a crosscut and this is the stone you really want, to develop, you Atari this way, and then you sort of drive white into your descent. And now you're splitting these two stones with like the maximum force at the closest possible point of contact. So basically we have a little bit of an exchange. White gets really thick out here, black takes a really massive corner, but this thickness is much stronger than it might look just to the passing glance. Now white invades, black plays to kill. This move might have been a little too easy on white. I think it might be better to continue in the corner and maybe something like this to just really attack the eye shape really severely without giving white a chance to counterattack. Because when black attaches here, white thrusts through the position. And now we get into some just super complicated fighting. If you want a general commentary on the entire game, there's an excellent one at gogameguru.com, which is an excellent Go site in general. They have a lot of good news, problems, game commentary, all kinds of good stuff, and a really good Go store too. If you want board and stones or books or something, they're a good place to check out. And I'll provide a link to their website down in the description of the video as well. So the co-shape that I'm talking about, it comes about in the lower right, and I think you might be able to start seeing where it's going to come about, because we have this situation where these stones are they're really kind of in a dire situation. I mean, we have 3 liberties with this group. Potential Atari here for white, which would start a co. And these white stones are not healthy by any stretch of the imagination either, but it's a really, we're walking a very narrow path here, both players kind of going all out in this situation, looking for some advantage. And now this creates the co-shape, and this is a very interesting move because it looks like this group only has, 3 liberties if we're just counting liberties on the board, but if white doesn't want to initiate this co, and we'll go over that in a second, but wants to capture these stones, it's actually really, really hard because these 2 black stones still have a lot of life in them, and that white can't afford to let them come out, so is going to have to capture them in a loose ladder situation. So if white does try to kill this group from the outside, black is eventually, or could do this right away if it was necessary, but is eventually going to come like this, and white's going to have to spend a move to actually Atari and capture these stones. Okay, so that's one move that white played here, because otherwise, when white tries to come in here, it'll be a self-Atari situation. So that's one move to throw in, one move here. Black can now play elsewhere. White has to capture here. Black plays elsewhere again. White has to play here. Black plays elsewhere again. Now white has to capture these stones, because if white tries to Atari, it would be a self-Atari and black can capture it. Black plays again. Now white can put them in Atari. So it just takes a tremendous amount of moves to come from the outside and capture these stones. So counting the initial throw-in and the connection here, it took 6 moves for white to come and capture this group, which is really, this is only like, what, 6, 8, 12, 14 points of territory at the most here. And now granted, if the life of this group is also dependent on that, it gets a bit bigger, but spending 6 moves, even for a 25-point situation, that's less than 5 points a move. I mean, that's endgame, like small endgame at that. So white can't, once black makes this half eye, white can't really come from the outside to capture these stones. So what about this starting this ko? White can obviously throw in here to start this ko, but a few things to notice about this. The first is that black takes this first. So this is something that I think really doesn't get stressed enough when people talk about ko, but whenever you're looking at a ko situation, or you think you can force a ko situation in one of your games for some advantage, the first thing that you should notice is who captures the ko first. Especially towards the beginning of the game, it's unlikely that anybody has very many ko threats, if anybody has even 1 or 2 at all. And so capturing it first makes a huge difference, because if you both have 1 ko threat, whoever captures it first wins the ko, because you'll just exchange your ko threats and then take the ko after, the first round, after your first ko threat, because, nothing else to worry about. And in this situation, it's even harsher on white, because let's say white does use a ko threat like this. This is definitely threatening to save the group, kill this. This is definitely a local ko threat. And then white recaptures. This is a 2-step ko for white. So white not only has to capture it second, but is going to have to win it twice. So, depending on the situation, and, black could almost even just be like, okay, you know what, if you're really that dedicated to winning that ko, I'm just going to go take, this corner over here, and then, I'd do this, and now you settle it, and I come back over here. Well, okay, yeah, white's getting a good corner here. I mean, it's not fantastic, but, I mean, maybe about the same size as this black one up here, let's say. And while white was getting that, black just destroyed every other territorial prospect that white had on the rest of the board. So this is not tenable, even if white wanted to try. And what's moreover is black doesn't even have to give up like this, because black actually has a wealth, an absolute wealth of ko threats. So when white takes this, black can threaten to come out here and just has about 5 or 6 ko threats just threatening to come over here and come out or capture these stones. So basically, it's not possible for white to start this ko at this moment. So black's created this kind of makeshift defense with a half eye that makes it almost impossible for white to attack from either side. So this is a really creative and interesting position here, because it's hard for white to figure out what to do with these stones because they don't have eye shape, but it's not like white can spend 3 or 4 moves to capture these and resolve the situation, because black will decimate the rest of the board. So white actually comes up with a really cool plan here, which is basically to attach over here, and if black draws back, if black falls back here, white's gonna live, and if white lives, then black's dead. Like, yeah, we won't take the stones off the board anytime soon, and there might be some, ko threat potential in them, but, white's alive now, and black still has to fix. So white just lived in Sente. This is not acceptable. So black has to Hane on the inside, and this is this sequence just shows Gu Li's really creative thinking, is that now he switches to the outside to get this position with these 3 stones, which is really neat because, you know, how we were just saying before that white wouldn't want to start this ko because it just takes so many moves to resolve. Well, now that these stones are dead, that's kind of some cool bonus Aji that's in the corner. Like, whoa, black really has to think for the rest of the game, like, well, what if white starts the ko now? What if white starts the ko now? Is it still bad for me, you know, like, or bad for white? You know, if something changes in the rest of the board, this could, you know, come back to life somehow. And there's also some really cool connecting underneath Aji. So if black plays here to kind of, you know, make sure these stones can't come out and connect and these would die. So black's really trying to take Sente here. So this is sort of a makeshift, okay, you can't kill my 2 stones now, otherwise white could have come out here and connected and this would all be alive. And like we were saying, if this lives, then this is dead. So this is a really dicey situation for black in a lot of ways. And black's gonna turn over here and attack these 3 stones. And the reason that this is kind of crucial is because white has Aji to connect these stones out to these. So white can play this sequence, and black can't descend, because that would be Atari, and white would live. So black has to take these, and white can connect. Now notice this is still not any eyes in here, so we're still an eyeless group, more or less, but we are connected to the outside. So if we go back here, if these 3 stones live or escape, then white has that connecting Aji, and black is going to have to spend a move at some point to stop this sequence from happening. So black has to kind of make sure that these die as well, which is not as easy as it sounds. Here, white checks to see what Aji is in the corner, and the fact that we're playing all these moves away from this ko is what initially intrigued me about this game, because I was like, this is a pretty big situation in the corner. Whether this group lives and this group dies, or the white group lives and the black group dies, that's a pretty big situation, but nobody's concerned about it right now. So why is that? And it wasn't until I got into it and started reading more into the actual situation that I noticed how insanely difficult it is for white to come on either side to capture these stones. So this is a cool move. This R1 half-eye defense is really working well here. And at the same time, Gu Li equally has had a brilliant idea to say, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice those stones, build something somewhere useful, because I've still got this ko Aji. And like I said, now that these stones are dead, like if we think, okay, these stones have died, then starting this ko is a total, you know, what they call a picnic ko, or a one-sided ko for white, because black can only kill the already dead stones. This is like the Walking Dead of Go stones right here. It's like they're already dead, but you might have to kill them again. Oh my goodness. And you don't want to do that. If you kill something in Go, you don't want to have to go back and play more moves later to make sure it's actually dead. So we play this sequence here. You can see this nose attachment sort of makes use of the Aji that was created by these stones, because now black has to connect here, because if black goes off and, you know, it's like, oh, I'm just going to reinforce my side, now we get into, oh no, we just lost a bunch of stones. So basically this might have seemed silly to come in here in the corner and be like, oh, what's going on? Where's my Aji? But in this case, it forces black to take Gote, which is pretty big. Actually, it's huge at this point in the game. So now white can come back and invade on the left. And this is kind of a thin shape because you've got these dual invasion points, and there's, yeah, you know, kind of they can run into each other a little bit. Like if you try and seal this in and it jumps over here, you're kind of worried about this spot as well. But black does something really interesting here, and then as it comes back to the lower right corner, throws in here to make this false eye situation, and also to, you know, limit the liberties here, because now black plays at S1 to just get rid of that potential ko Aji. There's still this potential throw in and come in and reduce the liberties, but remember how we were talking about that takes 5 or 6 moves, it still takes 5 or 6 moves, and this just isn't big enough at this point. Plus, there's always the possibility that black can eliminate the liberties on this white group much faster. In fact, it's very obvious here that unless white plays this connecting out maneuver, right now it would just take 3 moves to put white into Atari. So even if white tries something like this, black just says, nah, we're just gonna kill this. Don't try anything. I'm done. So black comes back to end the Ko situation, and the reason is really pretty subtle in my opinion, because let's say black doesn't do that. Let's just say black, throws in this move, or actually probably wouldn't do that if it wasn't going to eliminate the Ko-Aji. And let's say black just starts fighting over here, and we get into something. Well, remember earlier how black has a bunch of Ko-threats here, white has some here, white can threaten to do stuff over here, connect out. Basically, black has, 1 or 2 more Ko-threats than white right now, and so isn't really worried about this Ko. But if white creates a situation over here and gets 2 more Ko-threats, then white can win this Ko. So not only does black have to worry about, maintaining the position, attacking, doing, all the things you would normally do when your opponent invades, but he also can't let white get 2 Ko-threats, which is really tricky. Like, it's really hard to attack your opponent and also make sure that they're not getting any Ko-threats whatsoever, because if they do, you're going to lose the lower right corner, and that's really, yes, you have the upper right corner as well, but, this is just, one of your 2 sources of territory in this game. It doesn't seem, with all this thickness here, that black's going to make much on the left side. So it's a tricky situation, and that's why black just goes back and says, alright, you know what, no more Ko-Aji, we're not going to worry about the Ko. Now we can just, play to our heart's content on the rest of the board without having, to look over our shoulder every single move, essentially. But white says, you know what, since you eliminated that Aji, I'm going to help these stones out. Because remember, if you don't kill these stones off, you have to come back and play something silly over here just to keep me from connecting out. So now black attacks the stone over here, and we get back into some complicated fighting. Just different things going on. Black takes a moment to come over here. White turns. Now it's just kind of an all-out brawl all over the lower left quarter of the board, rather. And like I said, if you want full game commentary and a little bit more analysis on all of this complicated infighting, I'm just kind of skipping it over because I want to focus on this situation down here, and the way that players were seeing this Ko as not really being that big or valuable for so long. And again, here we have a group here where white can play this and it's down to 1 eye. So that's a little, usually you don't see a situation with a group in limbo like this, but for right now, white could escape on, as long as white hasn't escaped on the outside, black, if white plays this immediately, black will just come here and it's over. But the scary thing is that if white does activate this Aji at some point, now black has to come back and live, so white's connecting out in Sente, which is really nice. But of course this doesn't help if these stones can't get through this blockade. So we kind of see a lot of maneuvering once this brawl in the lower left gets resolved. And like I said, Go Game Guru has an excellent full game commentary by, I believe, En Young-il, who's a professional player. It's very high quality. I really like their game commentaries. They do an excellent job of covering a lot of variations and a lot of details that you don't necessarily always get when you just have somebody throwing comments on an SGF file. And basically, finally at move 157, this does, white makes an eye here, and now black comes back to live. And the logic here is that now once black has 2 eyes definitively, And I also want you to notice that these stones that were like a source of 5 co-threats for black are off the board now. So this co-situation here, when white has an eye, is a little... It's not quite working for black anymore because he doesn't have those 6 liberties from the Aji on the left side. So now it's becoming dire to actually live with the group. And I'm going to wrap it up there because that's the situation I wanted to cover. And I think that, you know, some professional games are like this. They're just really complicated. I think, though, at the same time that, you know, it's really useful when you're looking at a professional game and there's something you don't understand to figure out why. And maybe you have to set it up on a board and look at it for a couple days, do a lot of reading. Maybe you take it into a strong player at your local club. Maybe you can send the game record into you know, somebody like Batusai or Longstride, and maybe they'll do a review of it and can answer your questions. Or just, you know, go on to KGS and go into a teaching room and ask a strong player to look at the sequence, like upload the SGF. There's lots of ways, but figure out why that move was made, because there was a reason. Pros don't do things on a whim. There's always an underlying logic and usually a lot of deep reading going into what they're playing. So, you know, figure out why, because that's really how you learn, you know, how to analyze a situation, and it'll also give you ideas that you would never have come up with on your own. Like, you know, this move that magically generates, you know, down here at R1, like 3 extra liberties is pretty magical, you know? It's like this technique for sacrificing a large corner group because it has leftover ko-aji and building something on the outside. A lot of the rest of the game revolves around white trying to battle his way out with this, and eventually succeeding. Gu Li wins this game, and it was really a good series. I wish that Gu Li had won a few more games just so there had been more games in the series, but this was really, really well played on by both players. So I hope you enjoyed this and learned a little bit of something new. I have some more videos coming up. I am getting back into playing online, which I haven't done in a long, long time. So I'm ranking up on KGS right now, and I'm ranking up by playing bots. So that's kind of exciting. I have a game I played against a 3K bot, which is kind of interesting. I think I'll post that at some point. And then I am also going to be doing a mixture of some game reviews. There's a couple of games I found online recently. One, there's a new Korean player who is just beat Lee Sedol twice in a major Korean championship, which is kind of insane. He was only a 1-dan professional last year. He was part of the Korea delegation to the Nongshim Spicy Noodle Cup, which is an international team tournament. And now he is just thrashing 9-dans left and right. There's some really interesting games of his that I want to go over. So hopefully I'll have those up in the next few days. And thank you for watching.